Hello everybody, my name is Necroxis, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Sonic movie was actually pretty damn good. I just got back from seeing it. I did a little bit of a half-assed review on my Twitter, but I wanted to put some more concrete thoughts out there about it. Yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of a non-spoiler review first, and then we'll get into the spoilers. I will say there are tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of Sonic Easter eggs if you're a longtime Sonic fan like myself. And they're all great, and there are times and scenes where there were some emotional moments that I kind of felt were schlocky, that I was instead just looking around on the screen, and there were just Easter eggs all over the place that don't get any focus and are just kind of there. So that the Easter eggs are really cool. Jim Carrey wasn't as schlocky as I thought he would be as Robotnik. My fear going into it was, I hope they don't just let him improv whatever he wants and then just put it on screen. You could tell some of the moments I think were improv, but I think the takes that they used for those scenes were probably the best ones because they were good. There weren't really any moments from Robotnik that I was cringing at or I didn't like. Even back in my review of the second trailer, I said, the redesign was better. That was what we were talking about mostly, but I was still kind of annoyed at the cutscene where you see Robotnik dancing in his lab, in his truck lab, and I was like, oh, I don't know about that. But in the movie, I think they do it better because the music they use in the trailer isn't the music that's being used in the scene, and I think the music used in that scene is more appropriate because Robotnik's not just randomly dancing around like an idiot for no reason. He's doing something else while something else happens, and I think it's fitting in that regard. And that whole scene actually, it goes on pretty long. It's actually a pretty extended scene where other things happen, and the use of green screen is actually pretty funny. So that scene that I was hesitant about from the trailers, I actually kind of liked a lot. Ben Schwartz's voice is just is it perfect for Sonic. The human characters aren't obnoxious or boring. I think at some point Tom's wife, I can't even remember, the black woman, because she's she's barely in the movie. She's in the movie way less than I thought she'd be. But her sister is in the movie for even shorter amount of time, and while she was funny, her shtick started to drag on a little bit right at the end, but she wasn't terrible. So I was surprised. I thought that the human parts would be terrible. I think the worst that you could say that the human parts were is some of it was kind of boring and schlocky, but overall it was pretty good. And I think James Marsden and the other two human actors, they do a pretty good job for what they have and for the script. And their parts as the human characters are kind of generic anyway, but they do with it what they can, and it's not terrible. The fan service is great, like I said, the Easter eggs and stuff. I actually kind of wish there was a little bit more fan service, because fan service isn't always bad. It's when they're bashing you over the face with fan service and the only thing the movie has to give you is fan service. But I think the movie has more to give than just fan service, so I kind of wanted more fan service, to be honest. And hopefully the sequel, if there is one, and there should be because it's selling pretty well, will have more fan service and less human stuff and more Sonic stuff, because that's what I want in a Sonic movie. The music was pretty good. The songs that they used were pretty appropriate for the scenes that they had. I just wish that there were more Sonic songs in the movie. There's two that I can think of off the top of my head: the very beginning and the very end. And there's only one song from the Genesis games that gets an orchestral remix that they use in the movie, and I wish they would have done more. Frankly, I really would have loved if during Robotnik's parts they had a remixed version of the Genesis theme, of Robotnik's theme. I thought that would have been cool. Because the only part of the music that I thought was kind of lacking was Robotnik's evil undertones in the music. Because when he shows up on screen, sometimes the music will switch to a more nefarious tone, but it was just kind of generic, and I would rather them have the Genesis music remixed to a current day instead of what they did. So overall, I think if you're a Sonic fan, you should definitely see the movie. I think if you're a not Sonic fan it's probably still a pretty decent movie. I will say I'm biased because there's a lot of Sonic callbacks, so I liked it more. But I would imagine if you didn't know any of that, you could still like the movie a decent amount. If you have kids, I think kids would love it. I will say there's one thing that always makes me laugh. I was reading some non-spoiler reviews before I went to go see it, and I saw some people complaining that, oh, Sonic himself makes too many pop culture references, or he breaks the fourth wall. Not even really breaking the fourth wall, just referencing like current things. He talks about various movies, even though they set up in the movie that he watches people through their windows watching movies. That's kind of he gets like pop culture references that way. But he does the floss dance popularized by Fortnite twice in the movie. Those were the only two times where I was like, but I will say Sonic has always been a character like this, who's kind of made like pop culture references and was like joking around and on the edge of breaking the fourth wall. So I thought those complaints were from people who didn't know what Sonic was. Because if they just said, "Oh, the pop culture references are annoying," I can understand that, and I could agree to some extent. But them saying Sonic making pop culture references is stupid, it's like, is it though? Because he's kind of always been that character. So I would say, if I had to give it a rating, if you're a Sonic fan, I think it was a solid 7 out of 10. If you're probably a not Sonic fan, it's probably only like a 5 or a 6. But if they add more Sonic stuff, and clearly they had the technology to do it, because Robotnik's robots look awesome. Like, they're all cool. Even though I was concerned that they look a lot like the Sonic 06 robots, and Sonic 06 is dog shit garbage. But the way they're used in the movie is cool. And I hope if there is a sequel, we get more different and unique machines. Because there's really there's like 3 basic kinds of drones that he uses, and then like his Eggmobile boss level machine he uses at the end. And I wish that there were a couple more. But yeah. So anyway, now for the spoilers. Right out of the gate, Hyper Potion song right at the very beginning was super cool, super nostalgic. I really wish they would have used more frickin' Sonic songs in the movie, because they used the Hyper Potions song from Sega Sonic Mania, and then they used Green Hill Zone orchestral remix at the very end of the movie. And I wish that there was some stuff in the middle that they could have added in there. Like, again, Robotnik's theme, I think, really could have done a lot for his scenes. Because Robotnik was great. He was better than I thought he was going to be. He looks the part a lot. Even before he gets, like, the crazy mustache at the very end of the movie, he feels like Robotnik a lot. I was surprised at how much Jim Carrey's improv mirrored things that I could see Robotnik doing. And there's not a lot of time, but there is a decent amount of time spent showing Robotnik experimenting on and looking at one of Sonic's quills. And in this movie, Sonic's speed is like almost kind of like a magic force, I guess. It's hard to explain. Like, it's like almost like a force of nature. He can just go fast because he's weird like that. Like, he has that power. But they never really address that in the games or the cartoons or any of the anime or stuff like that. He's just a fast character. But there was a decent amount of time spent with Robotnik experimenting on one of Sonic's quills that he has that electricity speed power in it. And that's the scene where he's dancing in his Eggmobile, not Eggmobile, in his like lab that's on a truck. And I actually liked that scene a lot, because you got to see, it was all like, a lot of it was really green screen, and Jim Carrey just like messing around with gloves that had buttons on it that supposedly were doing stuff, but it was just all like computer animated stuff. But I liked it a lot. I think it was cool. It was eccentric and weird like Robotnik is. And I think all of his interactions with his subordinate were great. The latte moment because the latte moment is when he's dancing, and then he turns around and his assistant's right behind him holding a latte, and he freaks out. And the guy's like, "I thought you'd like a latte with blah, 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 blah." And Robotnik's like, "Of course I like them. That's just the way you like them." And I thought that actually made me laugh in the theater. There was some comedy that was clearly for the little kids. Like, there's a fart joke, and the flossing stuff, I think, were all for children. But there was less of that than I thought. Robotnik says, "Who the hell do you think you are?" or something like that, which I was like, oh shit, I didn't think they could even say that in a PG movie. And they tease a son of a bitch joke where he gets cut off before he says bitch, and I was like, oh shit, I again, I didn't think you could joke like that in a PG movie these days, at least. Because back in my day, when I was young, PG movies could there could be lots of really fucked up shit where you're an adult and you're like, how the hell did this get a PG rating? But nowadays it's a lot more strict, so I was cool with that. Let's see, Echidnas at the very beginning of the movie. I mean, if there's a sequel, there's got to be fucking Knuckles has to show up, and the mid credit scene with Tails showing up. That was the only thing that got spoiled for me, and I'm really pissed that it did. I saw Tails trending, and I didn't even click on it, but then I saw, when I was looking up at a review, I was reading a review that had no spoilers in it, and then one of the side articles was like, here's how we feel about how Tails looks in the Sonic movie, and I was like, with the thumbnail was Tails' fucking face, and I was like, okay, great, thanks, internet. But Tails looked cool, he sounded, like, perfect. And they did the flying bit with he twirled his tails at the end and flew away. So they've got to have Tails in the next movie if they do one. They've got to have Knuckles. They established Echidnas at the very beginning of the movie. I don't know if the owl that was like taking care of Baby Sonic is part of the Sonic lore, because I never really read like the Sonic comics. So I don't know if that character showed up in one of the weird comics that they decided to just include. But I liked that character. It's weird that they only spent like 20 seconds with her. So I hope that when we inevitably go back to Mobius, which is what I assume is what the first place we see Sonic at with Green Hill Zone is Mobius. But then he also refers to where he lives as an island. And Sonic doesn't live on Angel Island. But maybe they're just combining Green Hill Zone and Mobius and Angel Island into like one thing. Which I'm honestly okay with, because I guess they would have to, because the Echidnas live on Angel Island, and if the Echidnas are going after Sonic, I guess then they would have to be living on Mobius, which I guess Mobius is the planet. So whatever, either way, just trying to figure out Sonic lore, like it's consistent and all is stupid. I don't know why I'm even trying, but yeah, Echidnas were cool, Tails was cool. I was convinced that they were going to have Tails or Shadow or both. I think had Tails. I think the next movie should be Robotnik on Mobius. He somehow finds a way to get from Mushroom Hill Zone, which clearly is where he is at the end. Because Mushroom Hill Zone, how you think of it in video game terms, and Green Hill Zone or Angel Island are different planets, I think, in this movie universe. So I hope the movie is Robotnik figures out how to go from Mushroom Hill planet to Green Hill planet or Angel Island, and then kind of the movie starts out with Robotnik already in control, maybe like a couple of years later. Because I noticed, and I didn't catch this in the trailer, or maybe they hid it. Oh, they did hide it, because they only showed him from the head up when they showed Robotnik with his big bushy mustache and the broken goggles, which is like perfect Robotnik imagery. If you look at him when he stands up, he's like kind of fat. Like he's gotten fatter than what he was in the rest of the movie. He has like a belly, and I was like, oh shit. They're gonna cut back to the next movie, and he's gonna be fucking fat Robotnik, and then he'll be perfect looking. He'll look perfect. Also, speaking about Robotnik, I've always been a Sonic fan who hates that they call him Eggman, because I think it's stupid, and I've always called him Dr. Robotnik. But I like how they do the Eggman Robotnik thing in this movie, because his name is still Dr. Robotnik, but Sonic calls him Eggman because Dr. Robotnik's his robots are egg-shaped, and Robotnik even makes a comment to something to the effect of, someone says something about an egg sack with animal. So he references Charlotte's Web and says, you know, she's like spoils the movie for this one dude. He's like, at the end, she dies and leaves this gross egg sack, and then he like unveils all of his drones, and he's like, here's what came out of my egg sack. So they kind of refer to all his robots as like egg-based, and then Sonic calls him like, the first thing he says is like, oh, okay, weird Eggman. And then after that, he just starts calling him Eggman. And I was like, oh, cool. So everyone else refers to him as Robotnik, but Eggman is kind of like the pejorative nickname he gets. Which is what the games supposedly work under, but they kind of just refer to him as Eggman himself. And even himself refers to himself as Eggman. And I was like, your fucking name is Robotnik. Why would you call yourself the mean nickname that people call you? That doesn't make any sense. So I liked how they did the Eggman stuff. So yeah, so I have to say, a lot, like I said, a lot of Easter eggs. But my favorite one is probably when Robotnik is experimenting on the quill and all the power goes out, and then he's like opening the circuit breaker and turning them all back on, and the label for his robots are called fucking Badniks, which is what they're called in the Sonic games. And I was like, oh my god, they called them Badniks. That's super cool. So I'm still not okay with the rings being like portals. Like, I don't get it, and I think, like I said in my Twitter review, there's a lot of nitpicky stuff. If you really want to get into like the nitpicking stuff, there's stuff like, oh, when Robotnik's robots are invading Tom's house and they're shooting it up, why would they have to reload to give Sonic a chance to kill it? That doesn't make any sense, because it's just like a drone, so what is it reloading? Or stuff like, oh, when Sonic fell off of the building in San Francisco, his rings just scattered everywhere, and he didn't make any effort to seemingly pick them all up, so do people just have rings now? You know, there's stuff like that where it's like, okay, sure, but I kind of don't care because the movie was just fun. And I'm not saying the movie was perfect, because there were flaws. Like I said, the nitpicky stuff with the script. The script is fairly average, generic fantasy stuff. They play heavily on the schlocky "we're friends," and that gives me my power angle to the point that seemingly Sonic dies at the end and then comes back to life because Tom calls him his friend. And I know that they established that he wants to have a real friend before he dies. Like, they make bucket lists, and one of the things on Sonic's bucket list that Tom sees is make a real friend, so he calls him his friend, and then Sonic like comes back to life, like snaps. That was kind of like, okay. Like, in the moment, I was enjoying the final battle scene, but in my head when that happened, I was like, I don't like that much. But that was kind of just like a little blip before I went back to liking what I was watching. So, if you want to critically analyze the Sonic movie, go right ahead. There's probably lots of problems you could find with it, but overall I think it was fun. I liked it a lot. I am very shocked that the Chaos Emeralds were not part of this plot. I was convinced that they were going to be a MacGuffin or the MacGuffin of the movie. Even though it didn't show them off at any point, I thought maybe Sonic's power was because of the blue Chaos Emerald, and maybe he had it in his little bag of rings the whole time, and the owl woman just never told him, and then that was what his power was. And I guess they could still do that, and I think if they do a sequel, if they do a sequel, 100% the Chaos Emeralds are going to be the MacGuffin, because that's going to be how Robotnik gets away or gets out or escapes the planet that he's trapped on. But I was surprised they didn't use it. They had the restraint to not make Chaos Emeralds be in this movie. And I was like, wow, I was impressed. Because a schlocky video game movie that doesn't think it could have a sequel would just throw all the shit in there at once. Tails would show up for like a big part of the movie. Shadow would get teased. They would have like Amy and Knuckles would have cameos and stuff. They would just throw everything in there if they thought the movie was terrible and they're just trying to make a quick buck. But I think they actually tried to make a good movie that could be for old Sonic fans and for kids, which is clearly what the demographic for this is. It's for people like me who grew up with Sonic, and also for kids who can go see it even if they don't know Sonic, or if they don't know the Sonic games. Because I feel like Sonic is still kind of a household name. Like, even kids still know who Sonic the Hedgehog is. That's how powerful the Sonic brand is, despite all of Sega's attempts to destroy it with their shitty games that they keep making. Also, at the very beginning, when it goes, Sega, I was like, nostalgia. But, yeah, there's probably other stuff I'm forgetting, but overall, I went out of the movie being like, that was a really fun movie. I wanted to bring up one more thing that I was a little bit annoyed with, and it goes back to the script writing. Like, every 20 minutes, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, actually, there's like, they're doing the Sonic thing, and haha, and he's wacky, and they're having fun, and they're doing speedy jokes and all this kind of stuff. And then they have to, like, cut the momentum to be like, but Sonic really is just lonely. And they use the same song every time Sonic gets, like, emotionally deep in what he's saying. And it's like, I was like, okay, maybe once is cool, but twice now, they're using it as a plot device. The first time he gets, like, emotional is when he's playing baseball by himself, and for some reason he suddenly just goes, I'll be alone forever, and gets really depressed, and then just starts running really fast around the bases. and that's what causes the blackout, which alerts the government to his presence. And I was like, I feel like they could have done anything else to make that happen, and I don't know why they chose to make the event be Sonic is just sad and depressed that he'll be forever alone. And then they do it, I think, 2 more times in the movie, and it's just, I don't know. Those were the only parts where the movie actually fell flat for me, were when they were trying to be dramatic, because Sonic can have, like, dramatic moments, because I would say that when Robotnik has presumably killed him, and he's, like, sitting there about to, like, take his body to go experiment on him, I thought that was a pretty dramatic moment. I thought when Robotnik confronts him and Tom and his wife on the building in San Francisco with, like, 1,000 robots about to kill them all, I thought that was a dramatic moment. They didn't need to have, like, the sentimental, weird breaks in tension. They're not even breaks in tension, breaks in the momentum of the film, so that kind of bothered me. But that was really the only thing that really bummed me out about the movie. But overall, I thought it was much better than I thought it was going to be. And I even went into it kind of excited because the reviews were pretty good. And the reviews from Sonic fans were even better. So I was like, oh shit, maybe I was wrong. I mean, I feel like I was right to assume it was going to be garbage. But I was wrong to continue to assume that after I saw a lot of people who are Sonic fans being like, hey, it was pretty good. So, but it was even better than I thought that was. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It's a video game movie. It's a kids movie. It has a lot of the failings of those kinds of genres. But overall, it was cool. I hope it makes enough to warrant a sequel. But knowing Sega, they can never seem to figure out that when they have a good product on their hands, they should make a sequel. Like Sonic Mania, Sega. So who knows if they'll actually ever do a sequel, but I hope they do. I hope it features Tails and Knuckles at the very least. I could see them doing Sonic Adventure 1, to be honest, with Chaos. I don't know how characters like Amy would work in this universe. Maybe if there was a third movie and Sonic decided to stay on Mobius and he realized that there were other hedgehogs out there, maybe then you could introduce Amy. But I don't think you can have a second movie and just like a pink other hedgehog is just there, because they kind of go out of their way to make Sonic be an orphan and be the only weird hedgehog humanoid creature. Tails looks a lot like Sonic. I think they didn't do enough, I guess, if I had to be critical on Tails' model. I think it actually looks pretty damn good. But I think it looks very, very, maybe too similar to Sonic. But the echidnas, for what little that we got to see them, and I think almost all of them had like masks on and face paint and stuff, so you couldn't really see their face. You could just kind of tell from their shape, and they had the quills hanging down like Knuckles does, as like almost dreadlocks. The echidnas looked pretty damn perfect. I think Tails looks really good. I think he looks a little too much like Sonic, and I'm also not sure how Tails connects to Sonic, because they established that Sonic left Mobius or Angel Island or Green Hill Zone or all three or whatever they're calling his home as a like 4 or 5-year-old. So why would Tails be around? Because why would Tails care about Sonic? Because especially they established that Sonic was being kept hidden away by the owl mother woman who's in the movie for 45 seconds. So I don't know. I'm really curious how they tied that into it. Maybe he was a friend that Sonic had, because they established that Sonic like runs around against her wishes because she wants to keep him hidden because of his power of speed. Maybe he like befriended him at some point, and that's why Tails comes looking. Or maybe Tails comes looking because Robotnik is like doing shit. Because I think, if I'm remembering right, when they show Robotnik on Mushroom Hill Zone or Mushroom Hill Planet, he says like day 65, so he's been there for like 2 months already, I think. I don't know. But I would love to see a sequel. I'd love to see what the art team, and interestingly, the person that they brought to kind of help fix Sonic after the horrible fan reception of that god-awful nightmare, was one of the people who worked on Sonic Mania, and who worked on the opening animation, I believe. So I'm curious to see how he could instruct a sequel movie and see how those characters will look. Because I think the looks of Sonic and Tails and the echidnas are all pretty damn good, and I'm excited. And I also just hit me that if a reason that Robotnik's robots could look more like the video game ones going forward in the sequel is because he's trapped on a planet with like creatures and animals now. He doesn't have his clean white chrome drones anymore. So maybe he like takes inspiration from the animals and not only like traps them in the robots, which is what he does in the games, but he models them afterwards. So you can see like all the crazy. I just want to see all the fucking weird ass robots. Like that's what it is. It's like a Transformer movie to me. Like I'm assuming that people who are really hardcore Transformer fans might have gone to see the first one hoping to see all the weird robots, and when they didn't get it, they were disappointed. I was a little disappointed that we didn't get a bunch of little weird robots. We got the regular drones, we got the car that then gets killed and pops out another car, which reminded me a lot of the Sonic 2 first boss, which was pretty cool. But then other than that, Robotnik's final Eggmobile jet-powered thing, while it looked cool, it was like a Sonic 06 robot, and it was not super interesting. I was really hoping for the Death Egg robot to be in the movie, but fingers crossed for the sequel. But yeah, I'm rambling now, so I'm going to go. As you can probably tell, I like the movie a lot. I think if you're a Sonic fan, you should go see it. If you're not a Sonic fan, still go see it. It's still pretty good. And yeah, even if you have problems with the plot like I did, it's still, I think, a fun movie for the most part, that you can get over some of the things that might be nitpicky and annoying to you. So there we go. Sonic the Hedgehog. I am shocked that it was as good as I thought it was, and I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but I hope that they do a sequel. So good job, Paramount, for listening to people and fixing Sonic, because I think if he still looked terrible, then the movie would not be half as successful, because there are lots of close-ups of Sonic's face, and I don't know if that was intended from the original version of the movie, but maybe they decided, like, oh, we fixed the model, let's show close-ups of Sonic's face now in scenes. But the close-ups of Sonic's face that they have in the movie, if they would have had the first version, yikes, that would have been terrible. That would have been uncanny horribleness. So good job, Paramount and Sega, I guess, if you had a role in deciding to switch to fix him, but credit where credit is due. You listen to the fans. Sometimes, when longtime fans of this thing tell you that, oh, this is not how they remember it and this is how now it should be, sometimes they're right. I know it's a shocking notion. So, thanks everyone, stay awesome, and I'll see you for whatever comes next. Farewell.